Thanks for staying with us here on The Real Story. As the war between Israel and Hamas rages on, Gaza has become unrecognizable. After decades of conflict there, the renewed fighting following Hamas's October 7th attack has devastated resources. But a war more than 5,000 miles away is striking a very local chord, sparking protests across Connecticut. Joining us now is Bridgeport City Council member Jasmarie Melendez, who led the ceasefire resolution efforts there. It passed with massive support this past week, becoming the first Connecticut municipality to do so, but joining several other states in calling for the U.S. government to demand de-escalation and a stop to fighting in Gaza. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you've become an outspoken council member, and you say you genuinely believe there can be change in Bridgeport. So tell me first, what got you into all of this?
Yeah, so I got involved in organizing when I was 19 because I was directly impacted by state violence. So in 2017, my brother, Jason Negron, was actually murdered by a Bridgeport police officer. And at 19 years old, I got pulled into fighting for his justice, and that spread onto me fighting for justice throughout the state and even nationally. So fast forward to then this past year, I was asked to run for city council. And it's interesting because for so long I was on the other side of protesting and seeking and wanting for our city council representatives to do something when we were asking for change. And in my opinion, they weren't. You know, we were ignored for every effort that we had taken. So when I got the opportunity to run, I really felt that I had an obligation to do so that I could do things like this, like we're finally able to put forward a resolution that probably would have not been able to be done if I wasn't in that seat.
And as a freshman on the city council, as we said, you spearheaded Connecticut's now first ceasefire resolution. And while this is not legally binding, it does declare Bridgeport as a city which supports a stop to fighting in Gaza. Why was this important for you, and why do you see this as a local issue?
So I knew right away that before I was even sworn in, I was already working on creating this resolution. And I had already seen that Detroit had passed it, and we really modeled after Detroit's ceasefire and the organizing that they did. And I reached out to the Bridgeport Islamic Community Center because I really believe passionately that your work should always center the people who are being directly impacted. So we started crafting this resolution, and it grew momentum. The Bridgeport for Ceasefire, we had people from all different faiths begin to reach out to us and reach out to the people who are helping me organize in our community, wanting to see a ceasefire. And I think it's very important that although our local municipal technically doesn't have authority over international things, we have people in our community who are coming before the council and speaking about how they have lost family, and they are speaking about how they want to see a ceasefire. And I think that as an elected official, your responsibility is to echo the voice of what the community wants. And the community was gathering all different faiths to say that they wanted a ceasefire. So I believe we have a responsibility to call for that in support of what our community is asking for.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit more? You said you modeled this resolution after one Detroit had passed. Can you tell me a little bit more about what this resolution specifically calls for and what the city council has voted as their message to the Connecticut delegation on Capitol Hill, as well as President Biden?
Right. So basically, the main point that we wanted to capture was that we are calling for a ceasefire. That was the main aspect of it. There were different versions that did come out of the resolution because we had input that was being added throughout the time. So we did see changes in language. But the main message and the main call is that we are urging the Biden administration to call for a ceasefire. And that was the main takeaway that we wanted to be highlighting.
And what are the conversations you've had and the reactions you've seen as this resolution went through committee and then the council?
I believe that we saw a packed out city council from the minute that the resolution was put in to the end. And this encompassed a lot of different faiths, a lot of different ages, a lot of different demographic that was present with us wanting to see the ceasefire. There was a lot of support. We had an online petition that generated so many signatures. We had so many people signing up to testify. Every single council meeting, there was just so much support that we really saw asking for this ceasefire.
And you mentioned that support, the vote overwhelming here, only 2 votes against this resolution, but there has been some strong reaction against, especially from one council member, specifically an email leaked from Councilwoman Maria Pereira, among other things, referring to an Arab American man as possibly a Hamas terrorist, calling supporters Palestinian thugs, and more. You were named in this email, but leadership has now asked Pereira to resign. What are your thoughts and feelings about this, especially as you said you felt this resolution was incredibly supported, to see this sort of negative reaction?
Everyone is entitled to vote how they want to. There were other council members who voted no, and everybody has the right to do that. What people don't have the right to do is make Islamophobic comments and to say the things that were highlighted. People can read the email and take their point away. So I myself, as somebody who represents the same district as her, I'm completely against the comments that were made. And it's very harmful remarks that were made.
And do you feel like you've seen any sort of increase in Islamophobic comments? I know obviously we've seen across the state and across the country rise in anti-Semitism and hate speech overall. Do you feel like you've seen any of that specifically in Bridgeport, whether it be anti-Semitism or Islamophobia?
I would say the beautiful aspect of this resolution being passed was that it unified a lot of different faiths. We had a pastor, we had a rabbi, we had people from the masjid, we had people coming together. So that's where I want to keep it centered in, because that's what the beauty of what Bridgeport should represent. Bridgeport should represent that it doesn't matter what faith you are, it doesn't matter who you are, is that there should be unity and wanting peace. And that's to me, that is what a ceasefire represents. And that's what other city council members echoed, is that a ceasefire is that we want peace on both ends, and calling for that is where I think is really important. And we have to make sure that we are protecting, anybody in this moment right now who is being attacked based on faith or based on, what they believe. People have the right to believe whatever they want, but, we have to do it. We cannot, engage in that type of hatefulness.
Right. And obviously, Bridgeport has been under a national spotlight recently with the court challenge of possible ballot mishandling during last year's mayoral primary. And in general, the city's government has not really had a reputation of transparency. We saw in November, voters didn't turn out in large numbers. A lot of them told us they felt a bit disenfranchised. For you, why is it important for people to get involved in government, specifically in their city government? As you said, a lot of people packing city council for this resolution. So for you, why is it important for people in Bridgeport to be engaged?
I can't say that I don't hear the people who feel that way, because I myself have felt that way. I myself have felt that my voice is not being represented, or my vote, is not being counted for properly. But in this moment of me being able to be in a position where I can be a voice, it's really it's a double-ended thing, because I'm also experiencing the importance of having people who truly do represent you in a seat, and people who are listening to what the community wants. And that's what's really important. So I think that's why it is important that we do vote, because people who don't represent us should not be in seats like that.
And you're just getting started here on city council, still young, newly in the position. So where do you hope to go from here, either coming off of the momentum of this resolution or just in general?
Yeah, I'm the youngest woman ever to be on the city council in Bridgeport. But the most important thing is I'm somebody who's been directly impacted by, systems that have harmed our community in Bridgeport. And I just really want to continue. This is one moment of standing in solidarity with our community. I hope to forever continue to do that, to always be a vessel for justice and to make sure that I'm listening to what our community is wanting to see. And I 100% believe in a better, Bridgeport, and a Bridgeport that can be a beacon of change. We're the largest city in Connecticut. So as in this moment right now, seeing this resolution, it's setting a precedent. And I hope that we can continue to do that type of work.
Well, Councilwoman, thank you so much again for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that does it for us here on The Real Story. But if you want to watch these segments again, you can head to fox61.com or download the free Fox 61 News app and watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 or streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Have a great morning.